Testing, testing. Testing, testing. Hey everybody, welcome to the morning market briefing. It's Monday, January 12th, 2026. Hope you're doing well out there. Quick programming note, no call next Monday. Markets are closed. It sneaks up on you every year because you got all the holidays, then you got another holiday, and then we're going to have
Groundhog Day.
Groundhog Day, the big one. I'm excited. We've got some special coverage planned for Groundhog Day. So you guys make sure you are subscribed. Make sure you get alerts on the YouTube page if you are watching us live. So you know when we're on there, share it with a friend. All that good stuff. Because you're not going to want to miss the Groundhog Day broadcast. Let's make sure that's not on a weekend.
It might be. No?
February 2nd, right?
Yeah. Tuesday?
It's a Monday.
Monday. Nice. That's
So-
big.
So as promised, big Groundhog Day plans are in full effect.
I mean, the question is, who do we think is the better prognosticator? Is it Puxatawny Phil or is it General Beauregard Lee, who lives at the, I forget what it's called, but it's a real sketchy animal sanctuary here in the great state of Georgia and named after a Confederate general.
I don't even think I knew about
Oh, we went and visited him.
General
in middle
Beauregard
school.
Lee.
Yeah, give him a goog. He's a hero in these parts.
Is he groundhog?
He's a groundhog.
I
yeah.
was kind of hoping he'd be like a different animal altogether.
It's one of those it's like the North Georgia Animal Safari Park. It's very, it's the kind of place where you can put quarters into a vending machine and throw kibble at bears kind of spot. So,
Should we go there
yeah,
for the call?
Do a live call there. That'd be very fun.
Hicks, bring all the cameras.
Yeah, I'll figure out where he is in space, but I've definitely been there and seen him.
I love it. All right, big weekend. This was interesting to me, this story. Jay Powell put out a video statement and a written statement saying that the Federal Reserve was served on Friday with grand jury subpoenas. What was interesting about this to me, and I don't know if you guys had the same experience, but I learned about the initial news with Jay Powell's response to the news because it was everywhere. But I did not know the underlying news story until I saw the response. Is that how you guys, I sent the response to you guys.
I saw it on Twitter. I knew that had gone out, but I didn't think that this would make as big a splash. I'm excited to talk about everything that happened over the weekend today. This is going to be a fun call.
I didn't see the subpoena. To your point, Trump didn't know about it either.
And at first I saw it and I thought it was AI.
I completely, when you sent that tweet to me and it had a link to the Federal Reserve website, I was hesitant to check the link because I'm like, this is going to take me to some
You're going to
weird
see
website.
that picture that everyone knows what we're
You know the
talking
one.
about. It was very hot during COVID.
So Powell notes that on Friday, the Department of Justice served the Federal Reserve with grand jury subpoenas threatening a criminal indictment related to my testimony before the Senate Banking Committee last June. That testimony concerned in part a multi-year project to renovate the historic Federal Reserve office buildings. He then goes on to basically say, Trump's just trying to pressure me to cut rates. Tom, let's let you cook for a minute.
Here are my thoughts. The first is Jay Powell's response is not what he needed to do, in my opinion. I don't think that this deserves a presidential, announcement, address type speech where he's looking straight in the camera, he's not wearing his glasses, and basically being like, rolling out the playbook that Donald Trump is coming after me because he's a bad guy and he wants to attack my beautiful independent Fed.
I wish he would have hit us with they're not coming after you, they're coming after me.
Yeah, I think that, he did his with a part of serving your country is standing up to evil power or whatever he said. But I think it's a bad look. I think they should have responded with some sort of press release that, hey, we'll be cooperative. Obviously, there's been a misunderstanding and we're going to continue to move on from this. I would also argue that Scott Bessent is heavily, heavily, heavily involved in all things going on around the decision-making of the Fed. And I don't think that there would be a criminal investigation launched unless he thought there actually might be some criminal activity. And if you look at the money that's been spent on refurbishing this Fed building, it's like $4.2 billion. Think about how much it costs to build Jerry World. Or like any of these major stadiums. How come refurbishing an old building that's already built is costing so much money. And Jay Powell has argued that it's actually a couple buildings and that some of that money has been spent. But, I mean, you can go downtown and look at the Federal Reserve Building in Midtown, and it's beautiful. But I don't think it would cost $4 billion to refurbish that building. And it was built, I don't know, sometime in the mid-2000s because that used to be a crumbly parking lot where they did Music Midtown. And the third piece, I think, is the Fed has made a number of missteps based on their independence. And a lot of that has just been, I mean, we've seen some of the ding-dongs that have had opinions on the Fed and really had no opinion. They're filling a seat. They're going along with whatever Jay Powell thinks. And Jay Powell has been demonstrably wrong on multiple occasions. He should have raised rates when inflation got to 9%. He waited 6 months, and guess what? Inflation got real sticky. They kept printing money into the abyss, and that caused inflation to run rampant. And they didn't do anything to try and fix that for 6-7 months after it was obvious that that's what needed to be done. And then coming around the other direction, you know, it was pretty obvious that the jobs data was wrong, the economy was slowing, and they needed to start cutting rates back earlier this year. And Jay Powell dug in and said the jobs data is beautiful, clean, the best data there possibly could be. And then smash cut to 7-8 months later. And in the most previous meeting, he said, hey, you know, we realized that not only is jobs data bad, but the jobs data we're getting now might still be bad. And so how independent do we need to let this guy be? Because he's made a lot of errors and caused a lot of damage. I mean, you could argue that the blow-off top in 2021 could have been completely avoided by him raising rates in the summer of 2021. And then we wouldn't have had the massive destructive pullback of 2022 because we never would have had the run-up. We might have been flat for a year. And that feels a lot better than being up a lot and then getting absolutely blasted. And I think a lot of that can be pinned directly on Jay Powell. And there's been this media rally where it's like, man, he crushed it. He raised rates and we got inflation under control and the market came back. It's like, well, it didn't have to go away in the first place because he was asleep at the wheel because he was so independent. So I think that do I think that Trump is going after Jay Powell specifically because he wants to put pressure on him to cut rates? No, I think we have plenty of people inside the Fed now that are doing that effectively. And I would argue we probably don't need to cut rates necessarily right now because the data is so strong in a number of ways, and that things like allowing the GSEs to just blow up their balance sheets by buying mortgages is actually going to be more effective than anything the Fed would do. And I think that if there's some sort of fraud here or there's overspending or that money's going into pockets it shouldn't, then Scott Bessent's probably rooted that out because overspending is a real headline right now. Huge government contracts, people getting paid a lot of money that doesn't seem to be getting to either children or going to other countries or, I mean, who knows? Construction has constantly been a problem for the history of the United States of going to the mafia or the Teamsters or somebody who's up to no good, and this could be an example of that. Maybe they found something. I don't believe the narrative that the whole point of this is to make Jay Powell look bad and resign so they can get rates cut. I think if they wanted to cut rates, they would, and I don't think they will.
Has anyone, do we have any data on the documents that were actually requested and what has been subpoenaed?
I don't have that, but Jay Powell had them in his pocket. Remember when they toured the building, he had all the data
because
in his pocket.
That's the thing that I keep coming back to. I agree with a lot of what you said, Tom, in the sense that I don't think this was the appropriate response, even just the media that was used for it. I'm still not totally convinced that we know this whole story in the sense that it seems like a real jump to say I've been subpoenaed about the cost of my renovations. They're trying to get me to cut interest rates. Those seem like very different topics when it's been very clear and there's quite a bit of precedent for the way in which Trump tries to put pressure on Powell, and it's not through how much did that renovation cost.
Correct.
I feel like these are two different issues.
I agree that they're two different issues. I also think that if I'm in Trump's spot, I'm also looking for any leverage that I can get, and this would be one point of leverage. I wouldn't put it past Trump, I guess, at what I'm saying, to look for an angle here. That said, I don't think he is, because he's not very shy about saying when he's looking for an angle. And he was asked about this yesterday, and he said, I wouldn't even think of doing it that way. What should pressure him is the fact that rates are far too high. That's the only pressure he's got.
Yeah,
So-
he also added separately that he's not very good at the Fed and he's not very good at building buildings.
True. These are demonstrable facts.
So I part of me wonders if this is an example of Trump saying to Pulte, the FHFA guy, Federal Housing and Finance Authority head, you got to figure out a way to get the cost of housing down and improve housing affordability. And Pulte, I mean, he's like a dog with a bone. I mean, before he just took it on himself to start going after the Fed members. He was the one who dug up that stuff on Lisa Cook, among others. I wouldn't be surprised if he said, called up Pam Bondi and said, "Hey, we got to serve Jay Powell." And
that's the question that I still have is like, in what areas is the Fed being examined?
I mean,
I think the idea is that they've spent $4 billion on.
But I'm not sold that that's what the actual true meat of the subpoena and the document request has to do. Like, I think that could be cherry picked as here's a ridiculous thing they're looking into because they want me to cut rates.
Yeah, I just don't think they're related. I think they probably suspect that some of that money is going out the door. I mean, here's a great example of why I think that there might be some malfeasance here. Adjusted for the inflation, the building cost of the Burj Khalifa, the world's tallest building, $2.5 billion. So they're going to put up some paint, and I heard a new executive elevator that just takes Jay Powell from his office to the executive dining room. Somehow going to cost $4.2 billion. Even the elevators that take you from the bottom to the top of the largest building in the world somehow cost a lot less than that. So I think that that's something to maybe take a look at. I mean, I think it's a lot like the Somali place with no kids serving 215,000 meals.
It is interesting to me that Trump's distanced himself from it.
Well, I don't know if you've seen this, but the new taco trade is the tuna trade, which is Trump usually negates announcements. So this could be something to consider as well, that this might just get negated because it'll turn out that everybody misunderstood the situation. Jay Powell is going to look like a ding dong, which he seems to be very comfortable with, and then Trump's just going to get back on the you got to cut rates thing, and everyone's going to move on. But for the moment, it seems like a big news story, and the reason for that goes back to my first point, which is that Jay Powell had no business doing a live response blasted all over social media.
I think the market reaction to it too, like what's important right now is that the market's selling off, bonds are selling off, stocks are selling off as it relates to this. This is a knee-jerk, don't tread on my turf kind of thing from financial markets and from Wall Street Journal readers and people who are fans of Jay Powell. They don't like seeing one of their people what they view as being attacked. And I think that's why you're seeing what you're seeing this morning. But I also think that this is a very short-term phenomenon, and I think that at the end of the day, the market's going to price things fairly, and the market's not and what's a fair price is not the emotional reaction to an emotional video from last night.
Nick Timmerhouse noting that Powell had hired powerhouse D.C. firm Williams & Connolly as outside counsel before the DOJ subpoenas arrived. Now, that could be interpreted in one of two ways. Timmerhouse choosing to interpret it as, quote, a sign that he has been ready for whatever turns the White House pressure campaign could take. Know who else hires attorneys?
Criminals.
People that have done something wrong.
Yeah.
I'm just throwing it out. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what's in the subpoena. I don't know what's going to come from it.
Yeah,
but
being ready to
the
have criminal charges filed against you usually means you might know that there might be something criminal.
I want to be really clear. I don't know what they're looking for, what they're going to find, what's going to turn out, or if there is any criminality or malfeasance involved. I don't. But recent history has shown us when everyone makes one assumption based on one video that's come out, sometimes that's not the correct side to jump on.
Yes.
Let's talk credit cards.
I do want to say, speaking of if Scott Besson is behind this and there is some sort of criminal stuff, Jay Powell is toast.
Scott Bessent is not letting that guy out.
Also, there's a story over the week. I not to continue to get into politics, but Scott Bessent was very upset. He was supposed to go to the Minnesota State Capitol to do some business and also to conduct some interviews, and his security guarantee was denied personally by Tim Walz, and so he did not go to the Minnesota State Capitol, and he's not happy about that. He was very public about that in an interview over the weekend, and Tim Walz is dead. He may already be dead. Scott Bessent is going to absolutely destroy him with every power he has.
He's going to get Jerome Powell and Tim Walz to alligator Alcatraz in no time.
I mean, he is the economic serial killer of our time, and he is about to go to war.
He is so mad.
He is so mad. Yeah. So be prepared for that. So if you think, oh, this is a Trump's political retaliation, the answer is actually no. It's Scott Bessent, and you got real problems now.
Trump wants to cap credit card interest at 10% effective January 20th. Got a lot of questions. This seems impossible to do.
It's really challenging to do. I mean, the average, I think we have a chart on it. Of credit card interest is about 25% for people who have credit card loans. I think it's a couple things worth noting. Number one, I don't know how the executive has any authority to do this.
There's only one way to find out.
Number two, this would only be for 1 year. And then number three, credit card companies make money a lot of different ways. I know Bill Ackman was out on it all the time, and it's like for a guy who has as much money as him, who has been both as successful and
he
as,
sure
and
can't
a big
ignore
a failure.
some facts.
I mean, he just keeps saying that this is, the reason that you can get rewards from your credit cards is because other people have to pay 25% interest on their loans. It's like, no, the reason that you get rewards is because every time you swipe a card, the merchant is paying 2.5%. This is why when you have a 3% credit card fee sometimes on large purchases, because that's the money. It's called the swipe fee. It's called the discount rate.
Or why you can't do. Some places have minimums on their credit card.
Yep.
I mean, American Express makes
shout out Daily Bread.
Yeah, American Express makes money three ways. For example, they make money on the net interest income, which is what this is being contemplated here. They make money on the swipe fees, which we just discussed, and they also make money, by the way, every year where you have to renew your credit card. And so those three, it's the three-legged stool of American Express's income. Now, there are different credit card companies that make money that is skewed one way or the other. So, for example, with like a Capital One card, you have lower fees. They
higher
also
interest.
have higher interest, and then they take lower swipe fees because they have less of a moat. And so those companies are going to get hit a little bit more. JP Morgan, interestingly, also is one of those. Citigroup is one of those. So you'll see some of these companies get hit if this were to take place, but it's not the end of a lot of these credit card companies. Certainly, even if it went to 10%. And there are other ways to do these things. And the last point that I just wanted to make is they talked about credit card companies need to get compensated for the risk that they're taking. 25% is pretty extreme. And
not seeing many bonds with that.
No.
They're saying that if you go down to 10%, you're going to get fewer. You're not going to have any credit. Credit card companies just aren't going to extend you credit. And I think that that's probably pretty extreme. I mean, even payday lenders are not really charging a ton more than the 25%.
And default rates aren't 25%. If you had 25% of your credit card users defaulting, then you'd need that to cover to get break even. So then it would be, call it 30. But the numbers are much lower. And honestly, the reason they never default is because you just make those minimum payments and they charge you that interest forever. Mm-hmm. I mean, credit cards are insidious. And I would argue that the interest rate really isn't the problem with credit cards. If you have lots of credit card debt, your problem is that you're spending too much money.
Mm-hmm.
And you're paying for things over and over and over again. You pay, you buy a $500 TV, but it costs you $4,000 because you never pay it off. I mean, that's the insidious thing.
Eli Lilly looking at purchasing Abivax for $17.5 billion.
This would be one of the biggest acquisitions that Eli Lilly has made for one drug that I can remember. They've bought Loxo Oncology at one point for a lot of money, but that was a platform, an oncology platform. So this would definitely be different for Eli Lilly than what they've done in the past. It would be something more akin to something that Johnson & Johnson would do, or Pfizer or Merck. So as an Eli Lilly shareholder, I'm a little bit circumspect about this potential acquisition, $17.5 billion for an ulcerative colitis drug. That said, the latest big ulcerative colitis drug was Stelara, and that's just come off patent. It's a Johnson & Johnson drug, and it peaked out at around $10 billion in annual sales. So by all accounts and purposes, this is a very successful drug candidate that we should know more about the phase 3 trial this summer. And so if Eli Lilly can pull this off and actually have a big blockbuster on their hands here, it would actually be a smart move, but it is different than what they've done in the past. It's a lot of money to spend, but as they want to diversify out of just obesity, I think this makes sense from that standpoint. But it's definitely a high bar for them to realize a return on this investment.
Continued developments geopolitically speaking in Venezuela. We did have the big oil meeting at the end of the week last week. ExxonMobil CEO Darren Woods expressing some concerns about the viability and how much they were going to need to de-risk this. And Trump basically saying, then get out of the group, bud. You're out. And in Iran, things continuing to, I guess, escalate's the right word. A lot of speculation on X and elsewhere about the potential U.S. military involvement. What do you guys see coming down the pipe?
I think that direct U.S. military involvement is unlikely. 4 options have been suggested. First is boosting anti-government sources and online. So right now, Iran shut down the internet, and so Trump's talking to Elon Musk about getting Starlink in there. So that people can have access to the internet. Number 2 is deploying secretive cyber weapons against Iranian military and civilian sites. Number 3 is placing more sanctions on the regime. And number 4 is military strikes. I think that we're going to do something. I don't think it's going to be military.
I mean, I think it's highly likely that we could give a little nod and Israel will get in there.
Yeah.
I think they're chomping at the bit to do it. And, I mean, it is what it is.
Big week this week. In addition to all the stories we just discussed, lots of earnings coming out, some economic data. What's top of mind for you guys?
Yeah, there's stuff on the calendar that we need to pay attention to, and then there's stuff on the calendar that could become the biggest stories of the week that we don't know if it will happen this week or if it will happen at all.
And then there's stuff that's not on the calendar that will definitely happen.
Yes. You got earnings starting this week, including tomorrow with JP Morgan and Delta. So Delta will be very interesting as it relates to the travel demand. Has that picked up after the government shutdown? And then JP Morgan, I'm sure they'll be asked about the credit cards as well as the mortgage situation. So that'll be very interesting tomorrow morning. And then we have a 10-year auction today. Right now, the 10-year is selling off, so I'll be curious to see if people if real money use that as an opportunity to buy in. We have a 30-year auction tomorrow. And FIB Small Business Optimism tomorrow, and we'll be able to talk about that on the call because it comes out at 7 a.m. as well as CPI. CPI is expected to start to come down. So a lot of news, even just in the next 24 hours. On top of that, you have Trump and Machado probably meeting, Machado of Venezuela. You have potential for a tariff ruling this week. We thought it might come on Friday.
Yep.
Now it could basically come pretty much any day this week. You have the Iran meeting on tomorrow. You have ACA open enrollment that's ending on Thursday. And then you have Rubio meeting with a bunch of Greenland representatives over the course of the week. So it's going to be.
I mean, CPI and PPI are going to be big.
Yeah.
The 30-year auction, I think, might even be bigger, which I think is Wednesday?
Tomorrow,
Tuesday.
I think, yeah.
And then, I mean, I'm really going to be on the edge of my seat to see if Trump makes Machado wear a suit. Because you're going to have to get him a suit. Because obviously Zelensky got a lot of flack for not wearing a suit.
We'll see what happens.
And he's probably going to be in a jumpsuit, if I had to guess. I will say, speaking of Zelensky, this is a big big tangent, but documentary recommendation. There's a fascinating documentary that I watched over the weekend called 2,000 Meters to Andreevka, and it's all body cam footage of basically the 2023 counteroffensive, where the Ukrainians are trying to take a city called Andreevka, and the only way they can get to it is basically a 50 meter by 2,000 meter forest, and on either side there are minefields, and it is super dark, but it's all, I mean, it's like GoPro footage of these guys running through the forest fighting the Russians, and it is dark and heavy and really interesting to watch. And I would say we got to get this thing wrapped up. It's pretty brutal for both sides, but I mean, you get the Ukrainians' perspective, but man, you should watch it. It'll make you think, why are we doing this? So then we should have used every off-ramp we had in 21, 22, 23, but it's still going. So food for thought.
There we go. All right. We'll wrap it up there. We'll be back tomorrow. Y'all have a great day. Talk to you soon.